Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to England once again and we're going to have a look at another collaboration beer. Both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel before. The home brewery has featured on the channel twice quite recently and a few times before that, whereas the away brewery has also featured on the channel a good number of times before, but I think it's been a bit over a year since I last reviewed a beer from them, which is a bit strange actually because they are a very well respected brewery. But yeah, both from both breweries I've had some very good beers, and hopefully this one kind of follows on in that same vein. So yeah, let's see how we get on. So for this review then, we are going to go to a little place called Badley in Suffolk, in the kind of southeastish part of England, close to Ipswich actually, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Burnt Mill Brewery. So this particular beer is called Lands Apart. It comes in at 6.2% ABV, and this one is an IPA, New England IPA from what I understand. But yeah, this beer is brewed in collaboration with Northern Monk, who are from Leeds up in Yorkshire, and like I said, I've had very good beers from both of these breweries. I think the last beer that I reviewed from Northern Monk might have been the Heathen, which is one of their kind of core range IPAs, and that's a lovely beer that. But I think the next time I'm home in Scotland I will need to make an effort and get a few more kind of Northern Monk beers on the channel to review. But yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out. As I say, both breweries carry a very good reputation, and we got this beer here in Sweden as part of the Tillfälligt temporary assortment on the 2nd of February 2021. So yeah, nearly said 2020 there. Yeah, February 2nd 2021. But yeah, very much looking forward to this one. Nice to feature both of these breweries here on the channel once again, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So let's go for it. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about both the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done from both of the breweries here, from Burnt Mill and from Northern Monk, and you will no doubt see more added to those lists at some point in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity. We are getting a fairly steady supply of English beers over here in Sweden, and of course I was back home in Scotland recently, so I reviewed a lot of English stuff. But yeah, some great beers down there these days, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about Burnt Mill Brewery. So Burnt Mill Brewery, as I've told you before, are based in Badley in Suffolk, which is just to the northwest of Ipswich in the kind of southeastern part of England, and the brewery was founded by Charles O'Reilly, and they first started releasing their beers back in 2017. So Charles apparently discovered Sierra Nevada, and then after this he started seeking out lots of different world beers and just spending a lot of time at Kernel and Brew by Numbers when he lived in London. Two very good breweries incidentally that I recommend you check out if you haven't already. But he then got into home brewing, and his first beer that he made was a clone of the Kernel Double Citra, and he says that he's basically been learning about beer since around 2011, so this whole project of his own brewery was quite a bit of time in the making. But Charles was apparently drawn to the little place of Badley by the fact that they could brew with grains produced on the local farm, and they were also very close to their maltery as well, which is Muntons. But over the years they've built up this brewery. It's in an old barn from what I understand, an old, I want to say it was in an old, it was either an old dairy or an old grain store or something like that, I forget exactly. But basically it's in an old farm building, and they've continually built up the infrastructure of this brewery over the years. They currently boast a 15 BBL brew kit and numerous different fermenters, which are constantly being added to. But the current head brewer is Sophie Durand, who is apparently one of the founders of the International Women's Collaboration Brew Day, and she's got a wealth of experience across the beer industry, and the artwork on these cans, which is quite distinctive, is designed by Josh Smith. And as of January 2021, when I'm February 2021 now, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 110 different kinds of beer. So yeah, quite an impressive brewery, these guys. My friend Jake over at Jake O Beer, he lives very close to this brewery, so if you're interested in seeing the kind of really up-to-date reviews from Burnt Mill Brewery, he's the one that you want to check out. So I'll try to remember to put the link to his channel in the video description below. But yeah, for fresh updates, if you like, from Burnt Mill Brewery, Jake O is your man to check out. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Burnt Mill Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that's the home side of things then. On to the away side. So Northern Monk, as I say, they've not been on the channel for quite a little bit, but Northern Monk, as I mentioned earlier, are based in Leeds, and they were founded back in 2013 by Russell Bissett. So he started brewing in his mum's basement and then launched officially at the Sparrow Beer Cafe in Bradford. But in August of 2014 they moved into the old flag store in the city of Leeds at Marshall's Mill, and they've been working just to kind of expand the company and expand their brewing capacity ever since. So they say that they like to pay homage to the old monastic brewing in England that went on for centuries, but you know, these days it is largely forgotten. When anyone thinks of like monastic brewing and monks brewing, it's always the Belgian Trappist beers that come to mind, but apparently this was quite prominent in England, and of course there is now the Tint Meadow Brewery, which is worth checking out actually. But at the brewery they've also got the Refectory, which is their bar and restaurant, and they've also got their Patrons project as well, where they team up with other breweries for collaboration brews, and also local restaurants and artists and things take part in that. Usually the artwork is designed by some local artist. Quite often the restaurants are providing, you know, adjuncts and things like that. They're usually brewing adjunct beers and things with different restaurants, and of course when it comes to other breweries participating as well, they're producing some really damn fine collaborations actually. But of course their main operations these days take place at the Refectory on Sydenham Road in Leeds, which has a total capacity of around 24,000 hectolitres. But very recently, I think it was in around mid 2020, they released a project called the OFS project, and this is to brew small batches of beer in the original brewery in the old flag store, and those beers apparently have been going down very well. They actually had one that was called the Sakura Rice Lager, and I kind of wish that I'd managed to get a hold of one of those actually. I think that would have been a very, very interesting one. But the current head brewer apparently is Adam Lyle, and as of February 2021, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, they've produced around 215 different kinds of beer. Probably the most accessible beer from these guys would be the Heathen. That's a very, very nice one, a solid core range IPA, but like I say, it's been a good while since I've had one of their own beers actually, so I'm hoping that we get some Northern Monk through Systembolaget at some point soon, because we have had a couple of beers from Northern Monk, so the next time I see one of them released I will definitely make the effort to get that one and review it for you, because as I say, I shouldn't have left it a year to do a beer from Northern Monk. I should always try and get at least 2 or 3 from those guys done every year. But yeah, regardless, nice to have these guys on the channel once again. A very solid and very well respected English brewery in my experience, so definitely worth checking out when and if you get the chance. But yeah, that's all we can really say about Northern Monk for the moment. Again, if you want to learn more about these guys, the brewery website's in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've done. 215 is a pretty impressive number. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open it up. I have to say that does look pretty impressive. I wonder where that actually is. Is that... could it be Iceland? Or it looks a little bit... I don't think that's England, to be honest. I think it looks a little bit too high in altitude to be England. But correct me if I'm wrong, that could be like Chile or Iceland or something like that. Yeah, but pretty impressive, I have to say otherwise. So I'd be curious to hear from the brewery where this art is actually from, or from the artist of course. But yeah, it looks very nice. It says on the back here, an IPA brewed in collaboration with Northern Monk and a malt base of extra pale, rounded out with heavy doses of oats, which brings a thick creaminess to the grist, while the hop additions of Azaka, Mosaic and Enigma take the beer all the way from venison pine through to citrus and tropical fruit. So yeah, that will sound as if it's going to be pretty good. So like I said, 6.2% IPA. I suspect when this one has wheat and oats and stuff in it, it's going to be a hazy New England IPA, whatever you want to call it. But Azaka we know, Azaka and Mosaic we know, American hops, both come in at around 13 to 14% alpha acid. Azaka's got quite a citrusy, zesty mandarin to it with some kind of tropical notes, usually a little bit of pineapple or something. Mosaic we know is a very juicy kind of tangerine note, again 13 to 14% alpha acid. Enigma is an Australian hop. I think, again, that must be about 14-15% alpha acid if I remember rightly, but it gives you a lot of the kind of same notes that you would expect of, say, Hallertau Blanc or Nelson Sauvin. It's got that sort of white, green, grapey, gooseberry type note to it, but also a little bit of a kind of red curranty almost like cranberry-ish type thing from what I remember. Beautiful hop actually, that's starting to gain a little bit of reputation for itself. But yeah, I think this one should be really interesting. So 440ml can, I think I paid 50 Swedish kroners for this, so a little bit more. You know, normally for the Swedish ones you would pay about 40 or 45, but yeah, since this is an import beer, you're going to pay 10 kroners more, which is roughly about €1. But to translate that, yeah, about €5, maybe £4.50, maybe about $5.50 American for those of you just watching over there. But yeah, 440ml can, this one. Let's get it out. And we'll get on with the tasting then. Really curious to see what this beer has in store for us. And I'll tell you something, when you open this up you just get a big waft of orange, kind of juicy oranges coming out of it. But yeah, I think this one will be pretty damn nice actually. Got a good couple of beers actually. The Tillfällig assortment on the 2nd of February was a really good one. The ones later in the month I don't think are quite as interesting. There's quite a few beers in those that I have reviewed before. But yeah, there we go. There we go, I think we can get all of this in. There we are. There we go, that's a nice pour. Just a little bit over the edge. Probably should have left a bit in the can, but you know, why not? Why not? So yeah, as you can see with this one, this has poured a lovely, what would we say? If I shine the light through this, this is a lovely, very kind of rich yellow colour, this one. The head on that's absolutely lovely. I should have left some of that in the can, but you know, it was almost like challenge accepted when I saw the head kind of foaming up. But yeah, in terms of colour, I would describe this one as a very, very rich yellow, kind of like a little bit of a mixed kind of tropical fruit juice there, this one. I always like comparing these IPAs to different kinds of fruit juices. This one, it has a little bit of the yellowness you'd expect of a kind of mango juice, but then again it suggests that there might be something else in here as well, like a little bit of grapefruit or passion fruit or something. So the colour of this beer is very much akin to like a mixed tropical fruit juice. You could see that when we poured the beer it had a solid finger of head on it. I would describe that as a kind of, I think that's a perfect white head, to be honest with you. It's got a little tiny bit of a kind of cream tint to it, but not enough to kind of detract from me saying perfect white. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, but overall it does look really nice. In terms of the haziness out of this one, I would say that the haziness is fairly impressive for a 6.2%er. So two things about these beers. Remember, when it comes to the colour of a New England hazy IPA, it's dependent on 1, the type of malts that you use, and then 2, the length of the wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, thus you get a darker colour. But in the first instance, that depends, the actual colour that you get depends on what malts you're going to use. Obviously, if you use dark malts, you're going to get a far darker colour than this beer. But yeah, the level of haze in these beers as well is dependent on the oats and the the oats and the wheat content, sorry. Those are the two things that are mainly going to affect your haziness, but the yeast can also play a role in that as well, and the different ways that it interacts with different components of the malt base and stuff like that. So yeah, the level of haze on this, I think for a 6.2%er is pretty impressive actually. One of the hazier 6.2%ers that I've come across. I've come across triple IPAs that aren't as hazy as this, but yeah, it just depends on what ratio of wheat and oats and stuff the brewer likes to use actually. But yeah, lovely looking beer this one. Nothing overly surprising about it in terms of its appearance when you consider what style it is. My fridge must be cold. My hands are getting a wee bit cold with this one, but I suppose it is like snowing and everything outside, so it might just be the house is cold. Don't know. But yeah, let's have a little look at the aroma of this one then. So nothing surprising about the appearance, as I said. But yeah, the aroma of this beer is absolutely lovely. I'm going to say the fruitiness in this beer is, you know, really spot on, but we're going to come to that last. I always like doing the fruitiness last because I think, you know, your nose takes a bit of time to kind of adjust to that, to be honest. But yeah, the fruitiness out of this beer, I think, is absolutely lovely. So straight away with this one, you're going to get, on the malty side of things, you can smell this beer's got a lovely kind of soft white bready base, but I think this one actually leans a little bit more towards the kind of wheaty end of the spectrum. When I take the aroma of this beer in, I get a good little bit of wheaty bitiness out of this one. I'll need to check and see if Jake reviewed this one, or if any of the English guys have had a go at this. But when I take this beer in, when I take the aroma in initially, it's got a soft kind of white bready base to it, but I find the more that I smell of it, the more it becomes a little bit more kind of wheaty. At the same time though, you can smell a little bit of the smoothness from the oats. It's got a little bit, it does have a wee bit of that kind of brown sugary Werther's Original type thing out of it, but just a little amount actually. This one strikes me as a more kind of old school New England IPA, you know, one that's really kind of bready leaning rather than being one of these slightly sweeter ones that a lot of breweries are doing these days. So yeah, it's quite interesting in that regard. It reminds me of the likes of Narangi Amazing Haze in terms of the malt base, actually. But I like that. I do like the more kind of old school New England IPAs. I'm not sure exactly when this beer would have been released. I'm guessing it might have been about 6 months ago. Maybe this one, the original brew of this beer, because they'll have brewed another batch of it for the Swedish release. Because you've got to submit the paperwork for these beers, I think, about 3 months before they go in. So of course they've got to, it'll be the importer, the person that will have applied for this beer, I think, to come to Sweden would have been the importer. So probably Burnt Mill, and we get quite a few of their beers. Burnt Mill, I think, do have a relationship with one of the importers over here. So they'll brew a special batch to give to the importer, and so on. That'll probably be what goes on with this. But I'm guessing this beer might have been released originally about, you know, between 4 to 6 months ago, something like that. But yeah, as I say, the aroma of this one is, you know, it's pretty spot on. But yeah, this one is definitely more of a kind of old school New England IPA in that sense. Very bready leaning, good little bit of oaty sweetness, bit of wheaty bitiness, like I say. But I think, you know, the more that I smell of it, you get a bit more wheaty bitiness out of it, but it does kind of smoothen out quite nicely and lean towards that bready side of things. With the New England IPAs, of course, you can take them in various different directions. They can be more yeasty and farmhousey, they can be a little bit more kind of rye and grainy, they can be more kind of wheaty and bitey, oaty and creamy, you know, sort of smooth and bready and white bready, if you like. And you've also got some of the ones these days are a little bit more kind of brown sugary and sweet, if you like. So yeah, this one is mainly kind of bready, but just a little touch wheaty as well, to be honest. So yeah, on the green side of things, on the green component of the beer, it's got a lovely, very bright floral aromatic note to it. I wouldn't describe it as spicy. There's a wee touch of earthiness in there as well from the mosaic. Mosaic's always going to give you a wee bit of earthiness, but yeah, you've got a nice kind of bright floral aromaticity, a little bit of a light grassy sort of thing, but there's a good bit of citrusy zest to this one, but mainly in terms of the green component, big and floral. On the fruity side of things, and this is my favourite part, this has got a lovely big orangey leaning aroma, this one. You get a bit of the zestiness from the Azaka, from the mandarins, but you've also got that kind of juicier tangerine note there from the mosaic just underneath, so you've got a good array of oranges. I love these orangey leaning New England IPAs. Anyone watching the channel for any length of time will probably know that. I love orangey leaning IPAs. But yeah, there's a wee bit of a kind of pineapple-y tropical note in here as well, which I would suspect is coming from the Azaka. But yeah, the more that you smell the fruit in this beer, the more it comes across as kind of juicy in a sense. And I think later on, unless you take I think when you take the aroma in a bit more deeply, it's the orangey, zesty side of the beer that comes out. Whereas if you just take a kind of passive whiff of the beer almost, that's when you get the Enigma properties out of it. You get that soft, white, green, grapey, gooseberry sort of thing that you would expect of the Enigma. And, you know, at the same time, you start to get a little bit of the slightly red curranty, red fruity sort of thing that Enigma's going to give you as well. But I don't know with this one, I wonder, I would probably struggle if I was blind smelling this to pick out that was, I'd probably think it was Nelson Sauvin, to be honest, because the red fruity component I think takes a back seat compared to the more orangey, citrusy components out of this one. So I would probably think that this beer was Nelson Sauvin or potentially Hallertau Blanc. I don't know if I would necessarily think that it would be Enigma, but I need to get a little bit more experience with Enigma. I've only had maybe, you know, 6-7 beers or something like that with Enigma in it, but it's a lovely hop, as I say, and hopefully if I get to Australia late this year or early next year, I can find a few beers over there, a few single hopped Enigma beers. That would be awesome. That would definitely be really cool to try. But yeah, that's all we can really say about the aroma for just now. As I always say, take a bit of time and enjoy that aroma before you get stuck in, but we are going to try this one now. So this is the Lands Apart, a 6.2% New England Hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA from the Burnt Mill Brewery in Badley in Suffolk in the southeast of England, brewed in collaboration with Northern Monk from Leeds in Yorkshire, a little bit further north. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's a very, very solid beer actually. You know, I'm going to say straight away, I don't think this is the craziest one that I've had from either of these breweries. I think I have had beers that are a little bit more striking from both of them, but is it solid and well done? Absolutely. You can taste that this one isn't, it's getting towards the end of its prime, because you can feel that the oats in this beer are sort of kind of creaming up a little bit. There is a little bit of that sort of creaminess there. And the can, does it say? This one, yeah, this one was packaged on the 17th of December 2020, and it says it's best before the 16th of August 2021. You know, I would say that ideally you want to have these beers within a month. You want to have them between, the best time to have these New England IPAs, I would say, is between, you know, 2 weeks after packaging, because that lets them mellow out a little bit, and probably 4 weeks after packaging. So maybe, I don't know who it is that's imported this one into Sweden, but I would say that perhaps, you know, 6 weeks is not a bad turnover, to be honest with you, for an imported beer, but I would say that maybe they want to see if they can, you know, if they can get the beer maybe within the 4 week mark. If you can get it on the shelf at the 4 week mark, I think that's probably the optimum. But I have had beers, you know, I've had beers from the States where they've just been in terrible condition when they've been going through Systembolaget, and I've had a go at the importer. But that's, you know, 6 weeks isn't bad, but I think it could be improved. I would say that. I don't know which importer it was that would have brought this one in, but there is an importer here just now that's bringing quite a few of the English beers over. So yeah, that's good though. Obviously we want more English beers in Sweden because they're pretty damn good quality, I have to say. But yeah, I like how this one goes together. I really like how this whole beer goes together actually. So yeah, good stuff. But yeah, in terms of the malt base then, we'll kick off with the malt base. You can feel straight away in the middle of your palate, this one's got a nice kind of soft white bready base, that blankets the middle of your tongue. You can feel the oatiness kind of coming out on top of that in the middle third of your palate, so you can feel you've got that nice kind of big creamy oaty circle, and you can feel that it's sort of creaming up a little bit, as these beers tend to do when they just get a little bit older. As I say, this one's about 6 weeks in the can roughly. Maybe just a little touch more, but yeah, you can feel that oatiness just kind of creaming up, and you get a little bit of sweetness out of the beer the further that you go into it. But yeah, you've got a nice, you have got a nice little bit of a kind of, how would you say, you've got a nice little bit of a wee tiny touch of that Werther's Original brown sugary sort of thing, but mainly it's a very smooth oaty character in the middle of the palate, and just sitting on top of quite a crisp white bready note. As you move towards the back of the palate there, you reach that border region between middle third and back third of your palate. There's a little bit of bread crustiness in there, which is quite nice, and then on the back third of your palate you've got a nice big kind of wheaty bready sort of thing. So yeah, it's you get a little bit more wheatiness and bitiness at the very back of the, at the very back of the palate, and I think that gives the beer a little bit of contrast in the malt base, which is quite nice. So yeah. So yeah, I do like how all of that goes together. Yeah, so the, how would you say, the, yeah, on the back third of your palate, as I say, you've got that bit of bitiness. So if you go to the very back of the tongue, the bitiness is at its most intense, and as you move further forward, you can feel it just smoothens out a little bit. Then as you reach that border region between middle third of your palate and back third, the thickness just drops away a little bit. But then, as I say, in the very middle of your palate, it does thicken out a little bit again with the kind of oaty notes in there. But malty wise, this beer is really kind of straight shooting in a lot of ways. But yeah, in the back corners of the palate, then we'll move to the hoppy side of things now. I honestly don't think there's that much more to say about the malt base of this one. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, in the back corners of your palate, there's a nice little bit of a kind of earthy note there. That'll be from the Mosaic. But then as you move further forward, it gets a wee touch herbal, but then very quickly this beer develops quite a strong resonating floral aromaticity. So I really like how that goes together in this beer as well. The green component, I think, just it builds quite a good bridge with the wheaty bitiness that the beer has, come to think of it. So yeah, I do like the green component that you get out of this beer, absolutely. Yeah, it is really nice how all of that kind of plays together, come to think of it. So yeah, I mean, round the front curve of the palate, it's got a little bit of a grassiness to it. There is a wee bit of zestiness to the grassy quality in this beer as well, actually, which is great. And that kind of builds a good bridge with the kind of orangey flavours that the beer has as well. But yeah, I think the green component of the beer suits everything else that's going on. So let's focus on the fruity side of the beer then. On that front third of your palate, as I always say, you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. in that border region between middle third and front third of your palate, you do get quite a bit of oatiness in there. You can feel quite a thick oaty kind of quality there, but then underneath that front third of your palate, underneath the fruity notes, there's a very kind of smooth, white bready kind of note there. That's the base of the fruits. But yeah, if you go to the very back of that front third of your palate, it's quite interesting because you can feel the sort of orangey notes kind of pushing their way back there, which I find quite unusual because normally I get the orangey notes on the front half of the front third of your tongue, which is, you know, it's a more kind of, you know, because I just find orangey flavours and tangerine and mandarin flavours, you know, a little bit more oily. But yeah, you can feel the orangey notes going towards the back of that front third of your palate. There's a little bit of pineapple in there, which I think is the Azaka giving you that wee tropical edge. But then yeah, as you move onto the front half of that front third of your palate, you get that really nice kind of, you can feel the the more oily and almost more zesty orangey qualities as well. Right on the tip of the tongue, there's quite a little bit of zestiness kind of coming out of this beer, which is really nice. Underneath though, and as you go further into the aftertaste, you can feel the gooseberry component, you know, the white green grapey ester really pushing its way out of this beer. So yeah, I really like how all of that goes together in this one. It's got a really nice oily gooseberry-like component, so you know, thumbs up to the Enigma in this one. I think the Enigma adds a nice little bit of depth. I don't, you know, you have to wait for the aftertaste to really come to the fore to get some of the red fruity components, but there is a little bit of that, you know, there is a wee touch of that, how would you say, there is a little touch of that kind of, you know, like sort of cranberry red currant sort of thing coming out of the beer, but not a lot. As I say, I still think I would struggle to guess at this beer. I probably would think Nelson Sauvin. I think I probably would guess Nelson Sauvin or Hallertau Blanc. I don't think I'd distinguish that this was Enigma if I was tasting it blind. But the fruity components work together well. We know that, you know, for example, Mosaic and Nelson Sauvin work together, so it's only kind of logical that you know, these three hops, the Azaka, which is basically adding depth to the orange if you like, and the Enigma, which is adding depth to these gooseberry white greeny flavours, it makes sense that these two would work together. So thumbs up to both Northern Monk and Burnt Mill for this beer. It's a solid one, this one, but I hesitate to say that this would be the most crazy beer from either of these breweries. It's just another really solid example of the New England IPA, and I mean, these days you can't ask for much more than that, to be honest with you. Yeah. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, mid-bodied beer, the carbonation is quite smooth in this one once again. I think this beer has a nice slightly oily component to it. It's got a nice kind of wet cleanliness. You know, these guys are quite rural, if you like, so it makes sense that their water is good quality. But I mean, even breweries in kind of industrial estates and stuff like that, they've always got water treatment and things. But to me, the water in this one feels quite clean, actually. Not as clean, for example, as some of the Scottish breweries or the Nordic breweries and things like that, but yeah, it does have a nice kind of cleanliness, and it gives the beer a little bit of a kind of wet mouth feel. But in terms of the hoppy bitterness and stuff, I would say you've got, I think you've got about 30-ish IBUs in this. I think this is a fairly standard 30-35 IBU at most beer, this one. The malt base, like I say, is quite smooth. It's got a wee bit of bitiness to it from the wheat, and a bit of smoothness from the oats as well, but quite an old school New England IPA in that sense. It really leans towards the more kind of bready side of things. It doesn't have the big brown sugary notes that some of these beers have these days, and on the fruity side of things, good little bit of zest for me, and it's got a juicy element to it, but I find this one a bit more kind of oily and zesty from the fruity perspective. But yeah, I think that sums the beer up pretty nicely, to be honest with you. It's a very solid one. As I say, not the craziest beer I've had from either of these breweries, but a very solid collaboration, and it's nice to feature both of these breweries on the channel once again, given the opportunity. So yeah, I guess we can leave it at that for this one. This one was the Lands Apart from the Burnt Mill Brewery in Badley in Suffolk, in collaboration with Northern Monk from Leeds in Yorkshire, a little bit further north in England. But yeah, interesting beer, this one. Glad I got to review it. I love these orangey leaning IPAs, so this one did go down pretty nicely actually. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my reviews. I hope you enjoyed this one. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know your favourite beers, both from Northern Monk and from the home brewery Burnt Mill. Hopefully I can return to these guys again quite soon, but like I said, we're getting a steady supply of English beers over here in Sweden these days, but I will definitely make the effort the next time I'm home in Scotland to try and order in a few Northern Monk things and review those for you, because they've got quite a few new interesting beers actually, so you can look forward to those. But yeah, thank you again for watching, check out my social media, and I'll catch you guys later. The Lands Apart 6.2% New England IPA from Burnt Mill Brewery in Badley, Suffolk in England, in collaboration with Northern Monk from Leeds up in Yorkshire, also in England. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and catch you guys on the next one.